You're listening to the UnSafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown.
Biological warfare. That's all referenced in the book of Revelation. The inhabited world, the earth dwellers, fade and wither away. It's just a matter of timing. And this is all, by the way, taking place after the church leaves in the rapture. So we're not here. There are believers on the planet. The Jews are still here, as well as those people who have given their life to Christ post-rapture. But there's also a lot of people who don't know the Lord who are still here.
Will there be people here on earth after the rapture? And what will happen to them? In today's message, Pastor Ken explains the events that take place after Jesus comes for his church. The Bible teaches there will be famine, pestilence, and biological warfare. The people who remain will suffer great tribulation. There will be those who are saved after the rapture, such as the 144,000 Jews, and some will be protected from these terrible events. Make preparation now to be raptured with the church. Well, let's join Pastor Ken in the book of Isaiah, chapter 24, as he begins his message, The New World Order, Part 2.
We're not going to fly a whole fast way through the book of Isaiah, but we're still talking about the changes that are going to be taking place in the future. It's kind of like if I have invented a new way of determining where a hurricane is going to go, and I can tell you exactly where it's going to hit and the exact day it's going to hit. The only problem is I can only predict stuff that's 200 years in advance. Would you pay attention to what I was saying? Isaiah's doing pretty much the same thing. He's telling us the future, but he's giving it to us about 3,000 years in advance in some cases. In some cases, he's only giving it to us about 3 months in advance. But here, he's way, way in advance. He's talking about the New World Order that we started talking about in chapter 24, and the coming regime change that we're going to see as a result of Messiah taking over at the end of the age. So we are in what is called Isaiah's apocalypse, or the little apocalypse, not to be confused with the little apocalypse in Ezekiel, but they all have little stretches of scripture that points to the end of the age. Isaiah has 4 chapters, so it's a high-level summary, literally, of the book of Revelation. So if you want to know what the book of Revelation is like, Isaiah will pick it up for you with at the Battle of Armageddon and go from there, which is kind of what he does. So these 4 chapters are talking about the triumph that we're going to see with God at the end of the age, when Jesus comes and takes over. That's what it's all about. This is a change from the oracles that we were looking at earlier. It's a big change. Earlier, it was this nation's doomed, that nation's doomed, that nation's doomed. Now, Isaiah's kind of feeding the entire orchestra, and he's saying, the whole world's doomed. And Judah, too, by the way, has a problem as well. So he's kind of talking to everybody at this point. In the first 3 verses that we talked about, we are introduced to what Yahweh is going to be doing at the end of the age. It's called judgment. Total and complete judgment. Hear those 3 verses. Behold, the Lord lays the earth waste, devastates it, distorts its surface, and scatters its inhabitants. The picture is like taking a vase and turning it upside down. And the people will be like the priest, the servant like his master, the maid like her mistress, the buyer like the seller, the lender like the borrower, the creditor like the debtor. The earth will be completely laid waste and completely despoiled, for the Lord has spoken this word. That's real good news, right? That's exactly what you want to hear if you're in Judah. And he's just getting started. He's just getting warmed up. As far as the contents that he's going through here in this section, both eschatologically, there's a big term for you, and apocalyptically, those are 2 terms that theologians like to throw out. It points to not something that's going to happen soon, but at the end of the age. That's what this is pointing to. We can see these same ideas in the book of Joel, even talking about the pouring out of the Spirit, which starts in the day of Pentecost, but ends at the end of the age. The miraculous water of the New Jerusalem, Joel talks about that too. And then, of course, there's some of this also in Obadiah that shows up. But now we got 4 chapters here in Isaiah, which is talking about the end of the age. So we'll pick it up in verse 4. The earth mourns and withers. The world fades and withers. The exalted of the people of the earth fade away. The earth is also polluted by its inhabitants, for they transgressed laws, violated statutes, broke the everlasting covenant. Therefore, a curse devours the earth, and those who live in it are held guilty. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men are left. This section of Scripture is not the justification for the Sierra Club, because we're not talking about that kind of pollution here, okay? Isaiah, as we saw last week, has one word that he's already used for earth. It's the term eretz. And we talked about that last time. Well, here he uses another term for the earth as well. He uses the term again in verse 4, the earth, or eretz, mourns and withers. Then he says the world fades. This is a totally different word, and it points to earth dwellers. Remember in the book of Revelation, we were always talking about earth dwellers? Well, that's what we're talking about now with this term. The word is tebel, or tibble, if you want to look at it that way in the Hebrew. It means the inhabitants of the earth. You go through all of it, that's what it means. The inhabitants of the earth, the people who live here, the earth dwellers. So what he says is the earth mourns, that's the planet and the creation, and withers, and the earth dwellers fade and wither, is what he's talking about. The implication is that the earth, as created by Yahweh and entrusted to man, has been subjected to the curse because of the inhabitants of the earth, the people who live on it. Those inhabitants have not done a very good job at being stewards of what it is that Yahweh left under man's stewardship. The earth dwellers are in trouble, and if you follow through the book of Revelation to kind of where we are also, and we're going to cover it, there are some problems. The man has not done a good job. There is a future that is coming. In Revelation chapter 8, verse 13, is kind of where the kickoff is. I looked, and I heard an eagle crying with a loud voice as it flew directly overhead. Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth dwellers, people who, this is it. It doesn't get any better than this. Go for the gusto. It's the planet. That's it. They're trying to save the planet. Don't bother. It's all going to burn. And there's nothing to save at the end of the day. We're supposed to be stewards of the world, but we're not supposed to. There's not a lot that's going to be able to be saved. But the angel is saying, woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth at the blast of the other trumpets that the three angels are about to blow. So this angel is talking to us at the fifth trumpet judgment. This warning is to those who dwell on the earth. And it's immediately before, which is in this next trumpet judgment, that demons are released from the abyss and then torture all the earth dwellers, those who do not know Jesus, for 5 months. For 5 months, people get tortured and they can't die. And then a demon army is released with the next trumpet judgment, and they kill 1/3 of the remaining population of the planet. Why is the people of the earth fading and mourning? This is why. This is the judgment that's taking place during the tribulation. Those who inhabit the earth dwellers, will fade and wither. Now, notice in this section the terms that are used in connection with the inhabited earth. The earth is the same as created by Yahweh back in Genesis 1. Eretz, again, that term. The earth is mourning and withering. And we talked about that and how Paul talks about it too. All of creation is looking forward to the redemption of mankind. That's in Romans chapter 8, verses 19 to 23. It mourns, it's dried up because of how it's been treated. From our study in Revelation, we're aware that the seal judgments, with them comes global war. It appears, based on what the scriptures say, it's possibly thermonuclear in its distribution, and everything that goes with thermonuclear global war, to include pestilence, famine, yes, global warming, and biological warfare. I mean, that's all referenced in the book of Revelation. The inhabited world, the earth dwellers, fade and wither away. It's just a matter of timing. And this is all, by the way, taking place after the church leaves in the rapture. So we're not here. There are believers on the planet the Jews are still here, as well as those people who have given their life to Christ post-rapture. But there's also a lot of people who don't know the Lord who are still here. In the book of Revelation, the door of safety, which is the transition that we see in chapter 3 to chapter 4, has already taken place. The church has gone through it, and we're way beyond the rapture at this point. When Isaiah is talking, he's way past that. There will be some who are going to be supernaturally protected as we move forward in the book of Revelation, the 144,000. They'll be protected. All those who were sealed by the Lord at the beginning of the tribulation, they will all be talking with Jesus in the temple at the end of the great tribulation. Not one will be lost. But it's not going to be like that for anyone else. There's no one else who are protected to that level. The first seal judgment in the book of Revelation introduced us to a guy called the Beast, or the Antichrist. The beast is what we see in the scriptures. Antichrist is what he's against Christ. He's a great pretender, and he will be armed to the teeth, but it says there'll be a false peace, and he'll capture or conquer through peace treaties initially. So there'll be this fake peace while he's conquering other nations. And that's what it looks like initially. But then we have the second seal judgment that shows that the false and phony peace ends. And with it, the inhabited world, the earth dwellers, begin fading, withering, and the exalted, oh yeah, they're going to be fading away because they're all dealing with this. That's global thermonuclear war. That's the explosion that took place off of Eniwetok. That's a 15 megaton explosion there. Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 and 4 says this: when he broke the second seal, this is the second seal judgment that we're talking about, I heard the second living creature saying, "Come." And another, a red horse, went out, and to him who sat on it, it was granted to take peace from the earth, and that men would slay one another, and a great sword was given to him. And we went into that in great detail in our study of Revelation. The problem, though, is the continuing actions of those who have stewardship over the planet, which is mankind. God said, take care of the planet. Well, now you got a bunch of people, with Christians gone, the restrainer is removed. We talked about that. So whatever they want to do, they do. In fact, they're empowered and led by the enemy. We already know that. The other side of the coin involves the unseen realm, too. There's also the fallen members of the divine council who are busy about the business of encouraging and guiding, if you want to call it that, their charges within the different nations, all the governmental leaders. And they're influencing the actions that take place. So as it says in Isaiah 24:5, the earth is also polluted by its inhabitants. For they have transgressed laws, violated statutes, and broke the everlasting covenant. Now we see a continuing contrast of those who are earth dwellers versus those who are not. And this even is showing up here in Isaiah, that there's a contrast between those who are the inhabitants of the earth versus those who aren't. It's like we even have two cities. We'll see the city of chaos, and later we'll see the city of God. The pollution, though, that he's talking about here is not, we're not talking about the ozone layer disappearing, because by this time the whole ozone layer is gone. Thermonuclear war kind of did that in. This is not something that eco warriors would identify with in terms of the pollution, because Isaiah lines it out for us. He says they transgressed the laws. So what laws? I mean, that's the first question. They violated statutes. They violated what statutes? And then it says they broke the everlasting covenant. What everlasting covenant are we talking about that they broke that is causing this pollution? Is this the Mosaic law? Well, the nations aren't held to the Mosaic law, so it's not the Mosaic law. Is it natural revelation? Are those the laws that have been transgressed? Yeah, that's possible. Paul talks a little bit about it in Romans 1. The Hebrew verb rendered polluted here refers, though, to religious impurity, not environmental pollution. Several translations will render it defiled or desecrated, but under its inhabitants is an unusual expression. The Septuagint makes it a little clearer, because it'll say through by those who inhabit it. We'll see that here in a minute. The people, though, are the ones who have defiled the planet. So as we look at the Septuagint version of verses 4 to 6, it says this: the land mourned, and the inhabited world was ruined. So there we have that idea again about the inhabited world, the earth dwellers. The exalted of the land mourned, and the land acted lawlessly because of those inhabiting it. There's that sense, again, that it's polluted because of those who are living on it. They transgressed the law and changed the ordinances, an eternal testament. And because of this, a curse will devour the land, because those inhabiting it sinned. And because of this, those living in the land will be poor, and few people will be left. Now, the Hebrew word translated as polluted in the New American Standard Version is the word chanpa. You got to get that thing out. You sound like you're coughing at first, but that's what it is. The concept lying behind the passage is saying eris leads us to a concrete and figurative meaning, which means to make dirty, to pollute, or desecrate. And the Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament says it's basically Isaiah 24:5, and that's where we are. What is it that's been pointed out by Paul as the natural condition of those who are about the business of ignoring God and desecrating and polluting the planet through their lawlessness, okay? That's in Romans chapter 1. And in verses 18 to 20, it says this: God's wrath is being revealed from heaven, well, Isaiah's talking about it, against all the ungodliness and wickedness of those who in their wickedness suppress the truth. That's the law right there. They're suppressing the truth. What can be known about God is plain to them, because God himself has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power, and divine nature have been understood and observed by what he made, so that people are without excuse. In other words, if they just go out and look outside, they're without excuse. You just watch the sunrise off the Atlantic. You're without excuse. I was watching a video yesterday evening made by a guy who's a missionary pilot in Irian Jaya, and he's just flying from one little community to another, and it's just jungle. And you look at that and go, that's got to be the Lord. I mean, it was amazing how beautiful it was. But the desecration that we're talking about here is spiritually based pollution. This is an intentional act, the suppression, as far as Yahweh is concerned. You've been given the truth, you've been shown what the truth is, and you say, nope, don't want it. So you intentionally turn away and walk away. The condition comes from intentionally suppressing the truth. The Greek word here that's translated in Romans chapter 1, verse 18, is the word katakonton. It comes from the word katexo, and it means to hold down or suppress something, to prevent the doing of something or cause it to be ineffective. I mean, it's an active word. You have to do this to make it work. It's the state of the unbeliever, the person who has reached the point of being given over, which Paul talks about a little bit later in chapter 1, to exactly what they want. The Holy Spirit's a gentleman. He is not going to force himself upon someone who does not want to hear. But when a person reaches that point that they don't want to hear anymore, then God won't talk to them, just like Jesus would not answer Herod's questions. Jesus was done talking to Herod. Herod had rejected to the point that there was nothing more that God could say to him. He had committed that unpardonable sin of rejecting the Holy Spirit to the point that there's nothing could be happening to him anymore. That's what we're talking about, is people who have reached the point of being given over exactly to what they want. And it includes the results that go with it. For Yahweh, that means the imposition of judgment. David talks about it in Psalm 19. This is what we should all be seeing, and David sees it. He walks out of his tent and says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The sky displays his handiwork. Day after day it speaks out. Night after night it reveals his greatness. There's no actual speech or word, nor is its voice literally heard, yet its voice echoes throughout the earth. Its words carry to the distant horizon. In the sky he's pitched a tent for the sun. Like a bridegroom it emerges from the chamber. Like a strong man and enjoys running its course, and emerges from the distant horizon and goes from one end of the sky to the other, and nothing can escape its heat. I mean, he's just standing outside of his tent and looking at the glory of God. In another one of his Psalms, he just says, in all nature, just glory. There's nothing else he can do. Romans chapter 2, verses 14 and 15 points out to us that when people who don't know the Lord and who have rejected him do what the law says anyhow, then there's a problem. For whenever the Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature the things required by the law, those who do not have the law are a law to themselves. In other words, their conscience is now telling them, because God created them in this way, that what you're doing is wrong or what you're doing is right. I find it amazing, having been involved in criminal justice, that there are certain things that the body does involuntarily when you tell lies. They're tells, if you want to call it that. They're forensic evidence that someone is not telling you the exact truth about something. I remember we were shopping for a house when we first moved here, and one of the salesmen we talked to shot 4 of them within the first 3 minutes of deception. And I'm just going like, yeah, I think we're done talking here. I mean, it happens, but not everybody recognizes that. Well, that's what he's saying here. It shows that the work of the law is written in their hearts as their conscience bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or defend them. So how do they know that murder is wrong? Well, it's just wrong. Well, God said back in the Big Ten, thou shalt not murder. Oh, well. So here's the question. He says they've broken the everlasting covenant. What's that? What's the everlasting covenant? It's one that's hard to pinpoint, really. I mean, there are multiple eternal, everlasting covenants referenced in the scriptures. And fortunately, David Guzik went and found them all. I don't have to go looking for them. The covenant God made with mankind after the flood, never to judge the world again by water. There's more to it. The whole Noahic covenant in Genesis 9 is an everlasting covenant. The covenant God made with Abraham and his descendants, that they'll have the land. It's an everlasting covenant. The covenant God made with Israel and the priesthood, in other words, about the Levites, which was reconfirmed as a result of Korah and all of those guys suddenly being swallowed by the earth. That's an everlasting covenant. The covenant that God made with David to bring the Messiah from his line, that's an everlasting covenant. The new covenant, which we're living under, is an everlasting covenant. Prophetically, as it says in Jeremiah, and in reality, after it was established in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 20. So, okay, we have all of these things that are everlasting covenants, but what are we talking about? Many commentators take the view that, yeah, we've got that all over the place, but this is a reference back to the Noahic covenant of Genesis chapter 9. So the question is, which covenant of that passage are we talking about? The answer is that this is the covenant that was made with the world in general, found in Genesis chapter 9, verses 1 to 17. By violating the statutes and the specific commandments, the earth has been polluted by man. The language, according to Dr. Zuck, is best interpreted against God's background mandate to Noah. Again, not one more person saying it's Noahic. Genesis 9:16 uses the phrase everlasting covenant in conjunction with God's promise to Noah. But what we see here in Isaiah is the people of earth have rebelled. We'll get to it, referenced again in Isaiah 24:16 and Isaiah 24:20. Against the mandate to multiply, to respect God's image in mankind, and by indiscriminately shedding blood, which he'll refer to in Isaiah 26:21.
Because you decided to stay tuned, you've just been a part of the UnSafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown. Do you know how glad it makes our hearts to know you're investing time in your relationship with Jesus? So much. In fact, would you connect with us and share a little about what's been happening in your life and how this radio ministry has affected you? The UnsafeBible.com has a space for you to do just that. Go to the Connect tab at the side and then click on the Connect card. Once there, fill out the form, and then we'll be sure to touch base with you. Pastor Ken's message from Isaiah today left me reflecting on my own life and how I treat people. Do I treat them how I want to be treated? Do I give them the cold shoulder when I feel like it? Or do I choose kindness over retaliation? Isaiah was one of the major prophets that confronted some of these common issues we still face today. You don't want to miss any of these teachings. Trust me. If you already have, don't sweat it. We have your bases covered. Just go to the UnsafeBible.com and click on Media. There you'll find this and other messages to listen to. If Go 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 is your middle name and you can't seem to find a still moment, you can follow us via Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'd also like to personally invite you to attend one of our services. Find all the information you need, including directions, at our website. And just in case you've forgotten, it's the UnsafeBible.com. We hope to meet you soon. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Come back again for more of the Unsafe Bible.